This learning experience operations show is all about how we operate as learning professionals and how that's changing. Where we've been, where we are right now, and where we might be in the future. And my guest today has been in this profession like I have for a while. And in the last couple of years has pivoted in the most AI forward way I've seen of all of the people that I've talked to. And right now, of course, people are just hungry to understand what the possibilities are in this space with AI in the learning professions. And Dan Streeter, who's joining me now, is not just thinking about what to do. And you are pushing the boundaries as hard as anyone I've met. You are the CEO of Mission Fuel. We've known each other for a few years. That's all you gave me to say about you in your introduction. And just that last sentence. Normally I'm reading out where people went to school and anyway.
You could tell all that stuff.
But thank you for coming on and doing this with me.
You got it. Hey, Jason, it's truly a pleasure. And I remember the first time that you and I spoke several years ago, and you were just getting Jackrabbit, really going. And it's been so neat to be able to see your success over the last several years. And so it's wonderful to be on the podcast with you. And so thank you very much for the opportunity.
I appreciate that. That's wonderful. Well, so we are going to start off with some lightning round questions. And we're going to have time to go deeper into any of these things if we want to. But these are meant to be too quick, just a warm up for you and I. All right.
That's
so first thing, what is the 30-second elevator pitch that you give about what you do?
Got it. Well, see if I can keep it to less than 30 seconds.
All right.
We are Mission Fuel. We're an instructional design company. We build online learning almost exclusively for associations. And we do it on a project fee basis. And we also do it on a revenue share basis. But truthfully, the underlying sort of rhythm or the theme is mission is really to be able to democratize e-learning in a way that's never been done before in human history. And so we just simply do that through associations and through e-learning.
Love it. Okay. Next question. What do you love the most about your work?
Oh my gosh. Well, first off, I love my team. We have the best team possible. And I love the people. And that's the part that I really enjoy a great deal of. This is now my second iteration of a company that I started way back in 2013 called Impart. That company was acquired in 2020 by a group called Blue Sky eLearn. That's actually how you and I met, Jason, was through Blue Sky eLearn. I operated as an entrepreneur for 3.5 years. And then at the end of that, then I started Mission Fuel in August of 2023. So I love the change. I love the rapid pace of it. I love the people. And I love making the straight lines out of spaghetti soup, right? I love being able to create a clear vision out of just a mess of ideas. And so for me, there's so much to love about what we do.
This actually feeds perfectly into my next lightning round question, which is like when you're really locked in the zone at work, what are you most likely to be doing?
So for me, I'm on a sales call because of course I'm a sales oriented CEO. And so that's really what I do. And I used to be the guy who would plunk away at a storyline file, right? And I was the guy who would sit down and be able to try to figure out storyboards and try to figure out, how to build a scope and sequence. I still do a little bit of that work, but the vast majority of the stuff that I do is really in building client relationships. And building relationships like with you. Those are the sort of things that that I primarily do. And if you find me sort of in the zone, that's really where I'm at. Is I'm in a wonderful sales call, or I'm meeting with a client, or I'm meeting with you, and just purely building relationship.
All right. Well, we're going to stay in the zone this whole show.
That sounds perfect.
Very excited about that. Okay. Next question. And this is a question really about what you are doing right now with Mission Fuel. What was the event or moment that inspired you to do what you're doing right now?
Oh my gosh. Well, there were 2 moments that actually occurred. And so I'm going to take this will be a somewhat long, short story. I'll try to make it short as possible. I was a student in middle school. And when I put up my hand one day in middle school, I said, "Hey, why are we learning this?" By the way, we were learning about binary numbers, which is like totally fits right here, right? The 1010101, right?
Yeah.
Then you had to like logarithm it and figure it out. And I put it in my hand. I'm like, this is so dumb. Like, why are we learning this? Remember, this is like 1985. And the teacher said, the county says you're going to learn it, so you're going to learn it. And I was just done. I was just done with education, just period. Right from there, that was like a pivotal moment for me that was it. Well, my middle school and high school experiences were just a misery partly because of my attitude towards it, and partly because the system was not set up for a kid like me to be able to be successful. So fast forward that, when I got into college, I barely could read. I could barely do math. I mean, it was just awful for me. And so somehow, some way, I happened to take a public speaking class. And at the very same time, I happened to teach, or I happened to get involved with a group called the Jacobs Center. And I got a mentee, right? His name was Rob. And Rob was 14, had stolen a couple cars and been involved in drugs and gangs and the whole thing. And then I had a chance to learn, like, I love the kid thing and I love the public speaking thing. I think I got something. I think I could become a teacher. And I was on fire for education. And I have been on fire since I was 21 years old. And well, I guess I was 20 at the time when things just absolutely turned around for me. And since then, my whole life, my whole career has really been about education, whether I was a principal at a school or whether I was in the classroom or in this world. It's really given me just a gigantic blessing that's allowed for that to happen. So that was incident number one. Number two was November 2022. And in November 2022 is when ChatGPT hit the scene. And I happened to sit down on my computer one day. This little thing popped up on the news, said, "Hey, ChatGPT." I was like, "What's ChatGPT?" And I'm just curious by nature. And so then I popped that open. And the first thing that happened, I thought, it's over. It's over. Instructional design, the way that we thought about it all of these years, is now done. Everything from the learning objective creation to the storyboarding to even the graphic design, like all of it is over. And that moment for me was such a dramatic shift to be able to say, now we have to literally reskill an entire industry, but it's not just our industry, it's the world. Like the whole world will be impacted by this. So for me, it wasn't just the moment in middle school. It was this moment, my first interaction with ChatGPT.
You're kind of doing my job for me because at least this couldn't have led better into my next question, maybe, which is, what are you most anxious about for the future?
So for the future, I have two boys, both of them, I have three kids total. I have a stepdaughter who is 30, and then I have two boys that are 19 and 21. I'm afraid for their jobs. I'm afraid for what the world is going to look like here very shortly. I've got one that I'm not concerned about because he's an outdoor kid. He's gonna make it no matter what because it's not reliant on the technology. But I've got another one that wants to become an actor. And here I assume very shortly, there'll be the very first AI actress that will be signed to an agreement who can work 24/7, 365. You can produce multiples of her unlimitedly. And all of a sudden we have Tilly Norwood. What happens? What happens to the actors of the world? And what happens to, instructional designers of the world, voiceover artists, graphic designers? Like, that is the thing that keeps me awake at night, to be able to think about what happens next from my kid, that are out there in the world. So those are the things I'm worried about. Oh, my stepdaughter, by the way, is a writer. Same thing, right? Brilliant writer. And what happens now?
Marvelous. All right. Well, we're going to roll into our full questions now. So we're going to talk a lot about Mission Fuel. And before we do that, though, I would love, you actually mentioned a couple things that you've done along the way in your career. And I'm really curious to hear about a couple of jobs that set the stage for what you do now.
Yes, that's a great question. So I was a high school teacher for a number of years. Actually quit teaching 3 separate times, which is sort of crazy. One time to be able to go out on the professional bowlers tour. One time to be able to get a raise in the corporate world because I thought that's what I was needing to do. And then the third time was because my oldest son was born, Zach. And so when that happened, I'd been in the classroom for, gosh, a total of 7.5 years. And so that definitely helped sort of like create my notion of what it meant to be a teacher. But I had the advantage of actually needing to sit down and do the work. And I was curious enough about things like the internet and those sort of things that I was fairly tech forward, kind of at the time. And then in addition to that, I had my second job, or second big job, was I was the vice president of sales for a temporary employment service. So I had the high school side, and then I had the post secondary side, or not post secondary, but the workforce development side, and I
Mm-hmm.
did that for a number of years, actually a total of 8 years, and then from there I became a principal of a school. And so then I understood the elementary side. So I was a K-12 or K6 principal, and then I became the principal of a middle school. And so then when I had that, then I had the full spectrum, literally pre-K all the way to workforce development and everything in between. And so I have this sort of weird, eclectic kind of background, but it's all focused in on education and specifically how we start literally at the very, very beginning and where exactly we end up in terms of our workforce as a whole. So it's kind of a neat background. It's fun.
I have not spent enough time with your LinkedIn profile because I was totally unaware that you were a school principal and a teacher. As many times as we've spoken, that has never come up. I did not know this about you. I'm so glad we're having this conversation. And the last question that I have today is down the road when we're getting close to being done. The last person I interviewed, his name's Tom Driscoll, and he owns a company called EdTech Teacher. So he does teacher training. That's his business. And I ask every guest to give me a question for the next guest. And so it's kind of interesting. He gave you a question from very much a kind of a K-12 frame, which is really his universe. Anyway, I'm looking forward to that. But let's move through this the way I had intended from the top. So this really is a show for people in the trenches in the learning professions. And when I say learning professions, I really mean this in a broad sense. It could be a teacher. It could be a university professor. It could be somebody in L&D. It could be somebody who's creating programming for a nonprofit organization, and they're a team of one. But there are so many, as you know, there are lots of permutations of what we do. And I really want this to be for anybody in this universe. And I say that because I kind of want this to be, it's okay if we get a little nerdy and in the weeds. So I just want to, it's like a preamble for the question, which is, for people like us, how do you describe what you do at Mission Fuel?
For people like us, like the nerdy people?
For people like us, yeah. What's the nerdy version of what you do?
Got it.
At
So
Mission Fuel?
we accelerate the process of e-learning development. So much so that we have the ability to operate on a revenue share basis. And that's really what we do. And we use artificial intelligence in order to make it happen. That's sort of the more nerdy version of it. I would also say that we as a profession, and specifically that we as Mission Fuel, are really out to be able to help folks to be able to make this transition. And not just in our world, not just in the L&D world, but as I said earlier, like every profession is going to be touched by the thing that we do. And so, or by AI, I should say. And so, therefore, we have got to be able to step into that in terms of reskilling. And so, we will be the agent that will allow for the opportunity for human beings to be able to make this transition when it comes to the AI revolution. It is here. It is fully upon us. We're seeing layoffs, like Amazon is an example, right and left that are occurring. And now we've got to be able to figure out, how do we as L&D professionals step into that space and become the heroes of the day?
Yeah, Amazon, the New York Times story, they're going to lay off 500,000, or they're not going to hire 500,000 people.
Correct.
It's like 75% of their workforce ultimately
Right.
is going to be downsized.
That's right. And they'll just slowly but surely do it based on attrition, right? They'll just simply say, we just are going to just wait on hiring. We'll just sort of fill the roles and everything else will be done. And then over the course of time, that 600,000 will eventually be zero, right? Or as minimal as possible.
So you said that what you're doing is accelerating the work of learning design, what learning professionals do. Could you just kind of go a level deeper? Which of the things are being accelerated? What are the things you're focused on?
Yeah, I would say that everything that we are doing is really about process. And we think about how can we use AI first to be able to do this particular item. Now, I'm not saying that we're eliminating human beings. That is not the case at all, because we're able to employ the same amount of human beings, but at the same time, we're able to produce 10x more, which is
Mm-hmm.
really what the world needs right now. The world needs more of the learning that allows for us to be able to be sort of super niche oriented, right? We now don't have we don't have to be just focused on those big companies that can go out there and spend $20,000 on an e-learning module.
Yeah.
Well, now the ticket size may be less, right? So let's imagine that same ticket size goes from 200,000 to 60,000, but now instead I can take that 60,000, I can do 10 of them.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be one of the biggest differentiators. And for us, as we have driven down the cost of e-learning to the point where we can say, look, we're willing to be able to take a risk on whether or not this thing is going to be able to be sold for a particular industry, it really makes sense to be able to do. It is hard. I'm going to tell you right now that although the AI tools are wonderful and they are good, there is a difference being able to use ChatGPT to be able to produce a storyboard, or to be able to take a body of knowledge and put it into a GPT project and then turn out a storyboard or turn out a scope and sequence or any of that. There's a wild difference between that and automation.
Mm-hmm.
And that I think is sort of a misnomer, is that I think that with just generic sort of tools that we use, whether it's Gamma or 11 Labs or whatever, you can
Mm-hmm.
generally speaking get it down to 60 or 70 hours of time per hour of e-learning that you can really get it down to and make it good. But then it becomes harder.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's going to be the sort of the barrier for now, that people will really struggle to be able to sort of overcome. And eventually that will be overcome entirely, but at least for the time being, that's where we are.
You mentioned that moment in November 2022. Is that
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah,
2022.
yeah.
ChatGPT 3, I think it was released. This was the big public release. And you said a little bit about this, but I'd like to hear more, because it sounds like you had a very immediate vision of what the future might / will has looked like as soon as you saw it. And I'm curious, could you talk more about what you saw just at first? What was the thing that you saw that really flipped that switch for you?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I don't exactly remember the project that I was working on, but I happened to ask it really about scope and sequencing. And I said, can you build me a scope and sequence? And then it did. And I thought, oh, and then I thought, okay, well, take these three learning objectives and build a scope and see, and then build a storyboard for me. And then it did. And I didn't quite like it. And I said, well, can you revise it and then make it, into 20, like 30 slides rather than 20? And then it did. And I thought, uh-oh. And then I said, okay, well, take this one slide and build a script from it. And then it did. And I thought, no. And then when I really started to get into it, and I was like, okay, let's go ahead and take this bit of knowledge and then build me a storyboard based on the diagram that I give you. And it did it. And I thought, oh no, Jason, like, I mean, literally my jaw is dropping and I thought, oh no, we are in such trouble. And because, at the time I'm responsible for a team about this size, at Blue Sky. We're similar in size now to what we were, over at Blue Sky. And so I think, holy cow, every job now is at stake on my team. And we were already at the time using AI voiceover, and we had already sort of gone down that road. So I had known a fair amount about kind of the AI space, and I had been reading up on articles that there was stuff about to come out and all that sort of thing, but nothing prepared me for that moment when I thought, oh no, but then I was at the same time I was excited about it. I was like, you got to be kidding me! This is so cool. We can go ahead and then we can use this to be able to then build the voiceover, and then it shrinks up our time of production, and I can still charge the same amount, right?
Mhm.
What I didn't anticipate was how quickly this has occurred, Jason.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about your own team and like, what do you see like as being the biggest change that you've seen over the course of the last even 6 months to a year that has occurred that you're like, oh my gosh, I never thought that would happen when it comes to AI?
The biggest thing, I would say once I understood what ChatGPT did, and like you, for me, I had to get my hands on it. And I think that, I think you and I had similar pasts. Look, I came up doing things. I was making things. I was building courses. You've done that work. So we both have been in the trenches making stuff. I think as I matured in my career, there were lots of technologies that I didn't really have to use to understand. Somebody could just describe what it does, and I understood. It made sense inside my framework of how technologies work. That is just not the case with AI. I mean, until I really, really started using it, which is exactly what you described a minute ago. You asked it to do this thing. It blew you away. You asked it to do the next thing. Until you really do that for your own use case, it's really quite hard to understand what it's capable of and what the potential is. I think everybody's had that experience now. Maybe a year ago, I'm not sure a lot of people had, but I think now most people have. So I guess I'm not so surprised when it has come to text generation. I feel like I have anticipated those things, or I did early. The things to me that have been quite shocking have been the very rapid developments in audio and video. It's just happened really, really fast. The video models were so terrible just 2 years ago. I mean, really laughable, bad. And now they're really good. And now I'll come home and my kid will be like, here's this funny thing on TikTok. I'm like, that looks very real. And I can, just because of this one little pixelated thing that's happening here, I can tell that it isn't. And this is going to be true for the next month. And then we're never going to be able to figure it out again. I just didn't think we would get to this place this fast. So to me, the video is the one that's really blown me away.
I would agree with you on that, and I think that especially in the next few years, it's going to be incredibly difficult to be able to discern what is real and what is not. And the notion of deep fakes or any of that kind of piece will absolutely come out. And so I was watching a video by Gary Vaynerchuk, and he said, in the next 5 years, there will be more video of me that is not real than real. And he's like, I'm
really
all
true.
over the place, right? I'm all over the place. And he said,
yeah.
It's already that way now, right? There's so many videos of him that are not real, but still, it's just incredible. And I think that that the ability to be able to produce content in that fashion will either A, drive us to it, or B, drive it away from us, or it will increase the silo that we're currently in, right? It's sort of like screaming into the well, and the algorithm will just simply continue to be able to feed us, because ultimately it will be literally just in time learning that we will do, and just-in-time video as an example. There was a group that won this award, and I want to say it was from Google, and there was like 400 projects that they assessed. And one of those projects that won was 2 people watched the same video at the same time, but because of their emotional reaction to the video, it presented them 2 separate items. But they didn't know it. Like, they could not tell that it was 2 separate videos, right? So imagine you're watching this same video, but you're having the 2 wildly different experiences. That's where we're going. Have you been to, I think it was in, I want to say it was not Dallas. Can't remember. I was walking down an airport once, and they have this big screen that's up on the deal. And it's like, want to know where your airline is? And I was like, oh yeah. So I walk on over there and I'm like, how does this work? And he's like, well, show me your pass. And I was like, okay. He's look up and it tells you what it is. And then he says, ask that person if they can see it. And then they look up and they can't see it. I'm like, how did you do that? Yeah, it was just unreal. It's just unreal, Jason. So that's the sort of thing that I think is just uncanny. And I think about the world, like there's a tool called Soul Machines, that terrible name, but really kind of a crazy tool, and that it has the ability to see you. And of course, you can speak to it, and it's basically a video-based chatbot. Very cool, and yet at the same time, it's like, well, what happens to all those customer service folks? That it's another story, I guess. Yeah.
Well, I think there's just for me, as you were going through your answer, there's a whole stripe of really giant unanswered governance and ethics questions. Right. If so, the machines can read how we're feeling. There is a giant opportunity for us to be taken advantage of and manipulated and led into places that we never intended to go. And I think we should all take that really seriously. And to bring it back to the learning professions, I think this is one of our critical roles going forward. I don't know how you feel about this, but I really feel like for a long time, we've had to sit down with clients and say, okay, you're telling me you want to do this. I'm not sure that's a good idea. Right. Well, why don't we do it maybe a little differently? Because it could have these privacy implications. It could have this is a little bit of a dark pattern, or it could be something that isn't quite serving learners in the way that we'd like to. We've always kind of been in that seat. I think that role gets more important going forward. And I don't know, as you've been doing your work, how do you think about safety and risk and governance with the tools that you're creating?
I'm so glad that you said that because I do a fair amount of keynoting around the country, and I'll present probably 40 times this year. And one of the slides that I happen to have on my presentation says the following thing. It says not I'm the guy who's going to show you how. I am not the guy who tells you that you should, right? So there's a difference between how and should. And I think it's super important that people understand that just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should do it. And so as an example of that, this is a simple example is that I use, this tool called Photor to go ahead and to basically make headshots of groups. So Photor is Fotor, if you ever want to check it out. Very cool. Has a really neat headshot feature. Basically can, and it can align headshots together. So everybody basically looks the same. Well, I can go out to their social media posts without them aware, grab it, download it, reproduce it, put it in there, right? I can do that. Should I is the question. And I think that by all rights, that's not right. That's not right to be able to go out there and to be able to take that image without their knowing and so on. Now, that being said, I think that we've got to make sure that even the most basic example like that we do keep in mind that this still has got to be an ethical conversation. And at the same time, we have a federal government that says that it's going to be unlimited, right? We are not going to put the brakes on AI at all because basically we are in an AI defense race. And subsequently, we're not going to put the brakes on. And so now we're running into the piece of, well, what about copyright? Well, fortunately, when I take a look at something like a ChatGPT, it's pretty good in respect to its ability to be able to take content and turn it into other content. But where I really struggle is I'm like, okay, people go take a book that's currently in publication that is not theirs, and then they go ahead and then they upload that digital book to be able to make it a part of their proprietary piece, and then they reproduce something from that. That just doesn't seem fair to me.
No, without attribution.
Yeah, and that's the part. That's the part that I struggle with a bunch. Is where we kind of draw the line when it comes to IP, and there's not a great answer that's right now about it. And I just think that that any, especially from a federal government standpoint, there's no brakes that are going to be put on it. Because if number one, you couldn't keep up. Like by the time you and I get done debating whether or not we should, or how we should be able to do it, it's over. Like the next thing has already come along and broken through that barrier.
So next question is, you are involved in a lot of things and you've been solving problems as we all do when we run a business. What is the big thing that you're working on now? What's one thing that you're trying to do better right now?
Oh, wow. That's such a great question. I would say that we are number one, just simply refining our processes. We have a stellar team that I think is refining that to the nth degree. While most tools will sort of get us 80% of the way there, we are trying to be able to figure out how to take that 80% and make it 90, and then that 90 to 99, and then eventually to 100, to 100%. I think that's That's one thing that we're definitely working on. I think the other thing that we're working on is integrations between systems. Is that L&D systems were not built to be able to talk to one another. So Storyline does not talk directly to a learning management system, right? But what if we had that ability to be able to have a Storyline like tool that then had the ability to connect with others, or maybe it was Storyline itself that had that ability. I don't know. Point being is that the ability to have tools that talk to one another, I think would be absolutely critical to be able to have. I think in addition to that is that the notion of just-in-time learning, I think is something that I would really like to be able to figure out a way to solve. So,
Mm-hmm.
for example, we go out there and we make an update to a particular document internal, and then we turn around and we take that document and it automatically then updates a piece of learning. And so, and I think that would be sort of like this incredible panacea of what's possible when it comes to e-learning and really where we're headed as a whole. I think the other part that's really fascinating is when we take a person like you take me, I've been involved in L&D for a long, long time. And that learning needs to be directed to me in a different fashion than somebody who's brand new, right? But right now it's static and it's all the same. Well, what if we had the ability to not do it that way? That instead we could literally build it based on your profile. We know that you likely have this background, and I could predict these are the 5 things that you need. These are the 5 things that Dan needs. Let's go ahead and build the learning right then and there that's going to be delivered to you. That would be cool. Those are the sort of big things that we're trying to figure out how to solve.
That's really interesting. And it actually brings to mind 2 other conversations I've had on this podcast. One's with Brick Mayer. He is a director of learning design. I don't remember his exact title, but for a company that's involved, that's in the clean energy space. It's a workforce training organization. And the other is the person I mentioned before, Tom Driscoll. And one of the things that came up in both of those conversations was this idea that the things that we're delivering are going to be part of a larger experience that the learner's having. So the question that I asked to Tom, I think, was something along the lines of something about personalized learning, and should all learning be personalized? And he really chafed at that question. So I was quite surprised, because he said, it's fine. There's a place for that. But learning's very social. He said, I'm really worried about a situation in which we are sticking people in a one-on-one relationship with a machine, and they're just getting their personalization from the machine, when we should be taking advantage of the rich opportunities students should have to work with each other and to be interacting with their teacher. So I'm curious how you, or I suppose, how are you thinking about where a solution like that is a just-in-time tool? How do you think, what is that, if you just think about like a future workforce environment, right, where people have to do continuous on-the-job learning, what is the bigger picture where that solution fits?
So that's a great question. So here's my notion about teachers is that the number one job of a teacher is to be able to meet the student where they are.
Mm-hmm.
And so if that's the case, AI can do that better than most teachers can typically in terms of academic oriented items. Now, we also can, of course, now include social emotional pieces in there as well. I'm not saying that we should go out there and replace teachers. I do believe that we have the ability to be able to use AI to be able to augment learning in a way that we could have never have done possible before, because we can identify gaps that we could have never have found before. We can identify talents that we could have never found before, because of the use of AI allows for us to be able to do it. When it comes to the workforce item, it's very similar, Jason. So essentially I've got my, let's imagine that I just have I have the warehouse, right? So I've got the Amazon warehouse, and here I am. I need to be able to know how to do a specific thing, and I can go ahead and I get stalled, right? I'm there for a minute. I'm trying to be able to figure it out. And then the next thing you know, it actually pops up and it says, hey, you've got, seems like you're struggling with how to do this. Would you like a video on how to do it? I mean, we can get down to that level of things, which is pretty remarkable. It allows for us to be more efficient, allows for us to be more effective, and ultimately it allows for us to be able to focus on the things that allow for us to be great. Because we as human beings, when we think about sort of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I mean, ultimately our basic needs are met for the most part, right? And now this allows for us to be able to have the space necessary to allow for us to truly think, like to truly become, to a degree, self-actualized in a way we could have never have imagined before. People say that I'm a tech optimist, and I would say that I am a tech optimist. And part of that reason is because this leap that we're about to take is going to be incredibly difficult because of the speed that it's going to happen. If this happened over 50 years, it'd be a totally different story. But we're talking about 5, 10 years. That's what's going to make it difficult. But on the other end of this, I do believe that we have the ability now to be able to provide for each other and provide to be able to serve ourselves in a way that we could never have possibly imagined because of artificial intelligence.
Well, the other end, how far away do you think the other end is?
It's a good question. I have no idea. I think that this is going so incredibly quickly. When AI originally came out, when ChatGPT originally came out, they thought that AGI, artificial general intelligence, was approximately 30 years away. Now they're saying it's 5. Because remember, you've now unleashed a tool to 7 billion people, all that have cell phones, right? And so you've released the most powerful tool on top of the most powerful tool in human history. Mm-hmm. And no wonder it's evolving the way that it is. Because now everybody now has access to a tool that is limitless, that we never thought in a million years could be. So for me, Jason, I think that I don't know the answer. Like I literally read an article this morning that IBM came out with it has a new team, basically called the AGI team. And their whole job is to effectively go through and figure out how to be able to make AGI work, right? And to be able to identify when it occurs. And so this is the time when we're talking about now that artificial intelligence is smarter than any human. And we're assembling a team around this. So it's close. And then when we get to artificial superintelligence and we have one machine basically that's smarter than all of people on planet Earth combined, then what? When it will eliminate the vast majority of white collar jobs. So where do we go? It's a great question, and I don't have an answer.
I don't want to scare anybody listening to this, but if you want the scary version of this vision, did you read the Project 2027 paper that came out a couple months ago? So there are these AI researchers that had worked inside, major like OpenAI or similar AI, and they used the best available research to project out possible futures, near-term futures with AI. I think they're 2027 is a little early for some of the things they're predicting, but they give you like 2 alternate futures, and one works out pretty well, the other one not so much. And I think I don't know that I buy those 2 as the, like we're locked into one of those futures. But to me, it helped me understand the potential perils of a superintelligence. I think anybody who's listening, if you want to, it reads like sci-fi. It's actually quite compelling and interesting. It's a good read, but it's a little scary. And I think everything you just described is we're could be closer than we think. We might not even know when it happens and when we cross the threshold. And when it does happen, it could be orders of magnitude smarter than we are. And that is its own pickle. And I would say maybe a topic too big for this show.
Well, I'm happy to come back to it. So there's a video. I know the book you're talking about. There's a video that does the same thing. It basically describes that piece. And you're right. The one ending, not so great. But Yeah. And I think that, now that we're heading into this new robotics era, if you've been keeping up,
Yeah,
with the robotics piece, is that, China is producing hundreds of thousands of robots, and we're not quite in keeping pace around that. But in addition to that, robots are very close to being able to build other robots. So now you combine artificial intelligence along with that ability to have robots and driving down the cost of production of those same robots. Now we're at 600, I think it's like $1,600 is like an entry level robot. That's affordable for most families, right?
yeah.
And that is the most basic of models now that's pretty adept and pretty capable. Where does this go? And where does it go? I think that Elon Musk predicted that there will be 10 billion robots on the planet in the next, I want to say it's in the next 5 years. Maybe it's
What?
10 years. It's
Oh
10
my
billion.
God.
More robots than people.
More robots than people. Holy smokes. All right. Well, I'm going to get to my last question. This has been, we could keep going, but I'll get to my last question here. This is from Tom Driscoll. So again, he runs EdTech Teacher. And here's his question. And I think you could answer, and maybe you want to answer this twice, maybe one with your K-12 hat on and one with your workplace learning mission fuel hat on. So here's a question. Now that AI tools are so pervasive and useful, how has that changed the nature of the interaction with the learner? Has it enhanced or changed the learner experience?
Great question. I think it's both. I think it's enhanced and it's hurt at the very same time. I think without intelligent, really thoughtful approaches, AI becomes the crutch that people rely on, and then they end up with words like delve 45 times in an e-learning, which doesn't help
Yeah.
anyone,
Yeah.
right? The human still must be in the loop. You still need to rely on subject matter experts to be able to determine, is the learning valid or not? You cannot remove the human from human learning. I think that's number one thing. So we can never sacrifice efficiency for effectiveness. And I think that's part of it. On the same vein, when I have the ability to create a tool in a simple chatbot that we can produce for $20 a month, then we can supply to learners that are preparing for an exam, that in a really simple way to basically provide them all the domains, all the questions, all of the, and have it do that. Yeah. Now all of a sudden everybody has in the palm of their hand the Princeton Review.
Mm-hmm.
So in that way, for me, I think about like the acceleration, the dramatic acceleration of e-learning or of learning of human beings on the planet. I don't believe that it is dumbing down the planet. I think it's the opposite of that, because now we have the ability to truly have access to learning in a way that I never could have imagined before. If I want to learn coding, I can. And if I want to be able to learn about instructional design, I can. And if I want to be able to know about some other crazy printing press thing, I can.
Yeah.
And so now the options are limitless in a way that we never could have possibly imagined, even just 3 years ago. And so when I think about this notion of that we're going to lose jobs, make jobs, have jobs be the same, I think it's going to be hard for a little while here as we make this transition. But as we do, there'll be basically the great layoff or the great displacement, right? There'll be the great displacement that's going to occur. But then as we go, there'll be this great reskilling that's going to occur. And when that great reskilling happens, then we will officially sort of make this transition. But bring it all back to L&D. That's the reason why we exist. We exist to be able to help those folks figure out a way to be able to make this transition. I firmly believe we have the most important job on the planet right now. We were built for this moment, and we need to be able to figure out how to be able to help others to be able to make this transition. We know how to make great e-learning. They need that e-learning. Our job is to make the most effective use of the tools that are available, and AI is the best one out on the market right now.
You just said something that I haven't heard anybody say in our industry yet, which is we have the most important job in the world right now.
We do.
This is very interesting. That's the soundbite for this episode, clearly. But I appreciate the frame of the criticality of learning. It's obviously this is just a central part of what it has always meant to be a human being. But given the context of where we are and how the world is changing, it's hard to disagree that it's in the conversation as the most important job. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah. So I had a school principal who was a mentor of mine who I loved. And she used to say that one bad teacher is worse than a brain surgeon. The one bad brain surgeon. And she said the reason for that is because one bad brain surgeon destroys one brain at a time, whereas one bad teacher destroys 30 at a time or 150 at a time. We as L&D professionals, we have the ability to serve thousands and thousands of people. I think about all the e-learning that we do. It is in front of tens of thousands of people every single day.
Yes.
We have the power to be able to make an impact that no one else on the planet has, because we understand how to be able to develop e-learning and deliver it in a way that allows for people to be able to grow and to be successful.
There is literally no better way to end this episode. So we're just going to stop here. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it, Dan.
Jason, anytime. And I feel like I spoke a lot. Next time I'm asking you the questions.
All right. It's a deal.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. And a huge thanks to our guest today. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and share it with your friends and colleagues. I'm Jason Gorman. I'm the founder and CEO of Jackrabbit Learning Experience, where we help organizations of all kinds make learning better through a clear, repeatable process that is future ready. If any of this resonates with you, just keep tuning in and please join the community we're building. I'm looking forward to seeing you next time. Bye.